One thing I see a lot that I find hard is that people will write something that's actually really great and then they'll put it through AI to clean it up. And I'm like, the cleaning it up is the part that's just taking your personality out of it. Please don't do that.
So it's pretending to be something. It's pretending to be that.
I agree with that. And like the message is one of the core things that I work on with people because
You write something good, something that actually sounds like you, then you run it through AI to clean it up. My guest today says that cleaning up is exactly the bit that strips your personality out. And she can spot it every time. An expert regurgitates what's already known. A thought leader has fresh ideas. AI can do the first one. It can't do the second. So when you let it write for you, you stop sounding like the top person in your field and start sounding like someone copying everyone else. In this episode, we get into using AI to interview you rather than write for you. Why niching by situation beats niching by industry. And why you should want to repel people with your message. If nobody's being pushed away, you're not attracting the right ones either. If your content sounds fine, but nothing's landing, stay tuned. Today, I'm joined by Meg Hutson. Meg and I met through the Only networking group. Meg is a marketing mentor showing solo surface business owners how to land more clients by being totally, utterly themselves online. She runs a 90-day group accelerator and works with a handful of clients one-to-one to get seen, known, and selling out. She's been in marketing for over 12 years and runs multiple businesses and now lives on the South Coast with her partner. Meg, welcome. So glad to have you here today.
Hello, lovely to chat to you. Thanks for having me.
Well, it's been great, isn't it? I think you were actually before I launched the podcast, you were one of the first people that was like, yeah, I'll come on the podcast. And I think you're going to be probably episode 11. So we made it there, yeah. which is fantastic. And something that immediately struck me when I saw the bio you sent through was this, how to utterly be yourself online. And I'd love to explore that a bit more and understand what does that look like in terms of when you're working with your clients, sort of taking out of that space of maybe copying other people or trying to be like somebody else or maybe holding back a little bit and being a bit generic. How do you take them from those spaces into really being authentic?
Yeah, so things, a lot of people I work with have come out of corporate, either recently or, a while ago. So when you then go to put yourself out there online, it feels so overwhelming. And most people end up not being themselves. They go very formal, they go kind of stiff, and like they think they have to be a certain way. And like you said, they might start copying other people. Or generally what it is they'll think that they're writing really authentically. It's a bit of a buzzword, but they'll think they're being themselves. And then people will read it and be like, that's just quite boring, and it's not coming across with any personality at all. So the first step that we always work on, like the first step of my program, is purpose and personality, because it's so important to really it sounds weird, but work out what your purpose and personality is, because we just are ourselves, aren't we? And then you try and put that online and you suddenly don't realize how you want to be coming across. So we always start by looking at what are your values? Why are you running this business? How do you relate to your ideal client? And what are the kind of the parts of your personality you want to put out there? Because it doesn't have to be all of it. It's not about talking about what you had for dinner or talking about really personal stuff. It can be, but it's what parts of who you are you going to put out there? And that's the first step to being able to do it, because then you can then start to assess everything that you're writing, everything that you're doing, and think, okay, well, does that actually fit the kind of brief that I've made for myself of who I am?
Yeah, absolutely. And I totally resonate with so many things that you said there. It's certainly key for me in terms of when I'm working with clients and what I do, the values purpose side of it is so important. I mean, just in the preamble before we started the recording, when I'd read your bio about this utterly being yourself, and I'd said one of my values is authentically connected. And so I've actually spent a lot of time working on understanding my values, who I am, what am I about. I wouldn't say that I've actually been able to bridge that into, well, actually, I'm totally authentic myself. I mean, I think it's easier to be authentic in a podcast. Mm-hmm. I'm having a chat with somebody. It's very hard to not be your authentic self. But when it comes to actually then the messaging and kind of other content that you're sending out, I think can be more challenging. And so when you've got that into the space, people are understanding, okay, they're we know what their purpose is, their values, they're feeling a bit more connected with who they are and recognize how that fits in within their business, how do you then help them to take that out and actually get their message in a way that is more than themselves?
Yeah, so the next step is then like understanding who your audience is, which feels like it's coming away a bit from the topic. But if you need to understand who it is you're talking to be able to relate to them, because without that kind of without resonating, you are just throwing out your personal stories, which is where people get a bit like, well, that's not related to business, that's not going to help me. But actually, if you can start to look at your stories and your experiences and who you are and think, well, what is that ideal client going to go, oh, that's me? Or like, I've been through that, or I completely understand that, or, any of that. So you've got to kind of look at the two together, and that really helps them with your confidence to put your personality out there. Because if you can think, okay, well, that story of why I started my business, it actually is relevant because somebody else is going to see that and go, that's really inspiring. I wish I could do that. I would love to start a podcast. I would like to be X, Y, Z. And they're relating to you, and that brings them closer into your world. So that's one of the steps. And then it's to start to actually be quite brutal with yourself as well. So rather than thinking, that's who I am, that's my content, done, it's things like voice note yourself your content rather than trying to write it straight away. Because then, like you just said, it's easier when we talk, isn't it? Like it's easier when you're on a podcast to be yourself than it is when you write a post for LinkedIn or you write a newsletter. Like naturally writing goes a bit more formal. And I think that's from school. I think that's just because that's how we were taught, is like, this is how you write. Whereas actually that way of writing doesn't really draw people in very well. Like it's actually quite like AI has kind of followed the format of how we're taught in school in a lot of ways, hasn't it? Whereas it's not naturally how we might talk. So voice noting yourself is always a really good one, as is reading it out loud, and especially reading it out loud and thinking, would I say this to my favorite client? Like if I'd gone for coffee with that client that I got on really well with, just before we were talking about clients that you work with for years, you've got a really good relationship with, would you say it to them? Because if not, why are you writing it? Like if you want more people like that, why are you writing it? So it's like doing some tests like that, and then starting to kind of, it is being quite brutal with yourself and being like, you know what, that's actually really boring. I'm gonna put some quirky bits in. I'm gonna put a little joke in there. It's things like that.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Thank you for sharing. There's a number of things I'd love to sort of explore a bit into that. And that last point was, there is that danger. I've done it myself. I've gone too quirky. It's like, it's like, hey, emoji blast, it's kind of like, but actually I do like emojis. So using emojis inside of to express, I'm quite an emotive person. So actually that works for me, but there is that element, isn't it? You're also wanting to, I love this idea of that you will continue to want to be authentic, like I said, but you're looking at it and going, well, okay, it don't need to be boring, but also then it's, how do I make it more authentically me? Because maybe somebody might be sitting there listening going, well, yeah, but I'm not really out there. But actually there'll be traits that they have that if they went to ask somebody. So I remember a few years ago, I asked my daughters, I was like, what words would you use to describe me? And they say, oh, well, you're really encouraging. I was like, oh, wow. So sometimes we find that, don't we, that we don't recognize, we didn't see it in ourselves. Or even, as you mentioned, like clients, if you got on, clients for a while, what is it you enjoy about working with me? You can create that space. And I love what you said about resonance. To me, resonance is something like when I feel in my chest and I'm like, wow, I feel like that person is talking about me. Or I feel, sometimes it's a positive and sometimes it's a negative. Sometimes you go, yeah, that sounds like what I need. And sometimes you might feel the opposite, where you feel like it's my need, but maybe there's something a bit unauthentic, like it's maybe it's a hard sell. So you feel like maybe you want it, but you feel like it doesn't feel, so you feel like kind of a bit torn. And that's what you want people to feel, yeah, actually, wow, what Meg's saying is fantastic. I really feel like that's something that's really important. And another thing that, and I think this would be interesting to explore a little bit, was just on this ideal client perspective, because I know that is, again, one of those things where you have to be quite tough on yourself, where you're like, it's easy to go, yeah, well, if anyone that has this, a business, I've heard people say that, and you go, okay, that's a lot of people. And if in my messaging, if I'm saying those words, then I'm not connecting, am I, with anybody in particular that's saying, whereas if I'm saying to somebody, okay, well, actually, I'd love to hear what you say. Maybe that'd be a great example to kind of go, what is your, the sort of the Meg message that connects with people? I'd love to hear that, if that's okay.
So who my ideal client is, or like which message?
But a bit of both of that. So who the ideal client is, but then what is the message you said, you give that actually is designed to connect with that ideal client?
Yeah, so there's a lot of those messages that would connect. So it always starts with who that ideal client is. So for me, it's someone who is a solo founder. They are the business, and generally they have been through the experience that they now want to take their client through. So for example, a leadership coach, because somebody had to learn how to be a better leader. They've gone, actually, I want to help people with this, and they've created a business from it. Generally, that's who it is. And then it's people who they know they're amazing at what they do, and they're probably feeling really frustrated that there's just not the clients like coming to them, because we're all told like build it and they will come. It's so not the case anymore. And there's so much stuff online of like, if you just post more and just put DM me with this word at the end, and then the clients will come flooding in, and everyone's sat there just waiting for these clients to come flooding in. But they don't, because that's not actually how it works. And we've said we'll talk a bit about conversations and kind of the authentic relationships and stuff. But that's my person, is that person who's so passionate. They know they make amazing impact. The clients they do have are so happy with the work and with what's happening. But finding more of those clients and getting people to see you and trust you and actually pay you is the kind of the sticking point right now. So those are the people I work with.
Yeah, it's really great. And I love what you did there. Whereas you said, okay, you're talking about solopreneurs, but they are the business. So there's a number of things in there that you really honed it into people that were like, I am the business, that there is that sense of ownership in that. But then also situational. So the situation they're in, and actually that they've been through something else. They've been through the situation they want to do is they want to deliver something because they've been through that. So they have the stories, they have so that's really great. And if anyone listening, I think, it's a great example of, I really get it. You say that, I get it, and it ties in with, here's your ideal client, and here's what I would say that ties into that.
I was going to say, and it's also like noticing that it's not about like, I work with coaches or I work with, an industry. It's about the situation. You touched on it there. It is like, it's what is that specific situation people are in that you're going to help them with, because we all get quite caught up in this niching thing. Like you have to niche and you have to be specific. Do you have to niche? Different question. It doesn't need to be industry based. It needs to be situation based.
Yeah, that's great. And actually a niche can be situation based, can't it? It's still, you're still narrowing down the field to saying, well, okay, there's these people that are going to resonate with what, as we talked about earlier, the message, as you being your authentic self in the journey that you've taken and the journey you want to take other people through. Then if other people resonate with that journey and they go, well, actually, look, this Meg's one of my people. Oh, well, she's one of my people. Therefore, then, well, I'd rather work with one of my people than I would with a generic, because we get flooded, don't we? I mean, I get so many messages from LinkedIn of various people that I could go, yeah, you know what, I might need the services. It's not the fact that there's any stuff that I don't necessarily need. Sometimes it is, but there's often that thing of going, but why would I work with you? Why? I don't have any reason to work with you. If I can work with somebody that I could sometimes potentially meet face to face, there's local, or there's something that connects us other than the fact that we're on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
And I think it's trying to build relationships with people, as we talked about at the start. There's that when somebody resonates with your story, it's that kind of almost that spark, because it's the start of building a relationship. And so how important is it in what you see for people to have that building those relationships?
Oh, it's so important. I always use the example of financial advisors, because we all know 50 million financial advisors, particularly those of us who are in different networking groups. Like there's so many. And I knew for years I needed to sort out my pension, obviously self-employed, no one's doing it for you. Like I knew I needed to do it. That wasn't the problem. It wasn't an education thing. It was just I hadn't done it. And I'd met so many. And then I joined a networking group where there was this guy, Miles, who we just got on, similar age, both love traveling, like we had a laugh. And I was like, oh, can you do my pension? And like, it wasn't about his qualifications. It wasn't about, how professionally he talked or any of that. It was because we got on. Like, you assume people have the relevant qualifications. And particularly if you've like seen testimonials, you've seen proof, you assume all that stuff's there. You buy based on who you align with. So yeah, I talk a lot about alignment, and it's like using your stories to align with people, but also alignment in the sense of like, is what you're offering actually what they want and what they need? There's a lot of different kind of ways that we need to align in our marketing and our work. But yeah, it's so important, those relationships. Nobody wants to buy from complete strangers who they have no connection with anymore. Like, you've got to have that kind of the resonance there.
Yeah, and I think this is so core, isn't it? And what's been so interesting in having this conversation so far is that so much we've talked about requires a human. Yeah, it requires human connection, which we all crave anyway. So this idea that some people say, well, what's going to happen to human connection? Well, we crave it. If we don't, we saw that in COVID. Like the people breaking the rules, or at the end, everybody just say, oh my gosh, I can, and Christmas is coming. No, it's not coming. All these things that happened, but you saw that people wanted to be together.
Yeah.
And no technology is ever going to change that. This is innate inside of us. And so it's really interesting to look at that from a perspective, from a marketing side, because people will turn around and say, oh, well, okay, I can get ChatGPT to write me copy. I can get, you can get AI, whatever AI it is. You get it to do stuff for you. Yes, you can. You get to create stuff for you. But what we're seeing is that actually, if there's any slight, people are almost on the more of an edge now in terms of looking for AI, looking for. So I had somebody once say to me, I had a problem when you upload videos to WhatsApp. It can sometimes knock the audio out of sync. And it was a trailer, I think, for the first. And somebody said to me, oh, it looks like it's AI because it's out of sync. And I was like, well, it's less likely to be AI if it's out of sync. But the point being that people are looking for that.
We're suspicious, aren't we?
So that authenticity, it's even more important, because people are almost now looking for fakes, and they're going, okay, they're looking for they're almost high alert mode for the fakes.
Yeah.
And one of the things that you've mentioned is that you're using AI to be able to help with inspiration. So talk us through that, and how you're actually using AI to keep it human, be inspired, and help people to get their messaging, but keep it authentic.
Yeah, so I use AI a lot. And when I say AI, I mean Claude. I don't mean anything more fancy than that. I just mean Claude. But I use it every single day. The main ways that I use it are to interview me, and I suggest clients do the same. So rather than getting it to write your content for you and just going like, write me a post for a leadership coach, I really don't recommend that. You may feel otherwise, but I really don't recommend that. What I say instead is give it questions to interview you on. So for example, one, if we go back to the personality point, could be like a day in my life. What does that look like? And you could say to Claude or to whatever AI, that you could say like, I want you to interview me about my day, get all the details out that I wouldn't think of to tell you myself, blah, 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 blah. Like, give it a solid prompt. And then get it to interview. You can voice note backwards and forwards, again, getting a bit more of your like authentic voice out. And then what I would say is like, give me notes. I would say something like don't change any of my words, don't change any of my tone. Just give me some bullet points or some suggestions around what I could write some content around. And like perhaps pull out the parts of my personality that felt strongest, like things like that. So it's not writing the content for you, but I do like it as an interview tool for content. One thing I see a lot that I find hard is that people will write something that's actually really great, and then they'll put it through AI to clean it up. And I'm like, the cleaning it up is the part that's just taking your personality out of it. Please don't do that. And I've taken to just replying, like with one-to-one clients, we do like asset reviews and stuff, so I give feedback. And the amount of times that people send something and I go, is this you or AI? And they'll be like, well, I wrote it, but then I just got AI to clean it up. I'm like, take that out and then let's look at it again. Because what that cleaning it up tends to do is take your personality out. And you might disagree on this, and I'm sure there's many ways around this and training and all of that. But that's something I see a lot, is that people feel they have to polish things, and because AI is there as a tool, they think, oh, I'll just get it to make it sound better. And actually it makes it sound worse. So that's something I see a lot. And the other thing I like to use it for is just like keeping track of everything. So like with clients, I like to give it all of my transcripts, all of my like conversations with them, everything that we're doing, all of the notes, and then say to it like, you know, help me to structure the next session, or pull out the feedback that they gave, or, you know, any of that. Those are probably the core uses I find for it.
Yeah, it's fantastic. And I think when I look at the principles of using AI, I break it down into three things. The first thing is that we want to make sure the human is asking the question, right? So you're taking that, you're saying, okay, the human is providing the input. And then you have some sort of creation execution piece, which is, so you're saying you're getting it to review. Mm-hmm. And interestingly, yeah, you could, yeah, as you say, the downside to, if you say, you know, act like a copywriter, it is going to bias some of that, and you say it's going to rewrite some of that. Whereas if you're getting it to review it as someone with a particular lens, then as you say, you're getting that separate feedback. And what's great about that is that you're getting a separate output, aren't you? You're getting, this is your thing, this is what its response is. And then your ability to go, okay, well, actually, I could do that and I could do this. And we talked in a previous podcast about our cognitive ability to actually ensure that we need to continue to grow more in our creativity. Yeah. So we don't want to farm out to AI that side of it. So in that space, you're still part of that. And then the other element of it is the evaluation. So you're checking it. And the danger is, if you spotted out, if you get it to polish and you polish, then are you comparing what it was before? Are you reading it out and going, as you said earlier, aloud and saying, would I say this to somebody? Mm-hmm. And if it doesn't sound like you, it might sound like somebody you might like to be, but is that really going to work? And if it does work, what happens then when you're trying to have human conversations and there's a disconnect between that? And the other element that I add into that is, which it sounds like you're doing as well, is the development. So you go back and you go, well, how did that whole process go? Well, actually, I can go back and I can improve the prompt. I can update the Claude skill to make sure that it does that more in the future. And I think that's brilliant. It's great to the fact that you're using it for inspiration, that you're encouraging people to say, okay, right, maybe, I mean, I wouldn't consider myself the best writer. And yet, interestingly, I've gone back previously, recently, I'm a Christian, and I got my testimony that I put on when I came to faith in 2016. And I haven't looked at it in years. And yet somebody's reading it and they're like, oh, wow, this is just so beautiful. And I was like, what? But that was before AI. So there's a danger, isn't there, that we take away that just because, and it won't be necessarily the most brilliant piece of writing because I'm not a copywriter, but it's authentically me. It's probably one of the more authentic pieces that I have out there. In fact, anything that I've written previous to AI would have maybe been checked by Grammarly, but that is that's pretty much that. Oh yeah, okay, that there's a grammar problem or something like that. But I think that's actually what I love about this podcast is every podcast people bring out some insights and things that maybe I hadn't actually considered. And I've considered using AI for inspiration. But admittedly, in the past, I've also used it to take that inspiration and feed me back an updated version. But the more you do that, as we've been talking about, the less authentic it becomes. Yeah. And then you wonder why it doesn't work. It's like, okay, nobody's really engaging with what I've said, or people are not. Because I remember many years ago, I mean, I just show my age now, but there used to be something called Microsoft Front Page. It was a very early way you could graphically format a website. It's the very first website I created like that. And I did that. I was so pleased with myself. I was like, this is brilliant. So I put it online. Bearing in mind, back then there wasn't a huge number as many websites that online. But when I looked around, they all looked like mine. And I was like, no. And so that was the problem. That is the problem if we overuse any tool in terms of a creative process, that we end up losing that. So I really love, and I think that's such a great approach in terms of making sure that we're using it for inspiration and challenging, because we can use it for challenge as well, can't we? To say, okay, well, how could I improve it? Or actually, I've described, like, I love what you said about you describing your day. I've described my day. I've described who I am. I've described what I value. Does this represent me? Is this authentically me? Does it appear to be? You can come back when I actually know it's not really you. You put some stuff in there.
Getting it to give you feedback rather than getting it to change it. I think that's quite key, because it's outsourcing your creativity, isn't it? And AI can't really be creative, right? Because it's taking the kind of average. So what it's then kind of doing is making you sound more average, which is what keeps you invisible. Like, that's the way I see it as a non-AI expert, but that's the way I see it. It's like, it's making you average, and we don't want to be average. We want to be creative. And there's a thing like which one is it? An expert is someone who knows all the stuff and can like regurgitate all of the information, and that's what AI can do. A thought leader is someone who has fresh ideas, and AI cannot be a thought leader. Like, that's kind of how I try and explain it to people. Is like, I was started with a new client the other day, and he kind of presented me with this post that he had written with AI, and I was explaining that he suddenly doesn't sound like the top person in his industry anymore. He sounds like somebody who's kind of copying other people, and you're kind of giving it I think you're discrediting yourself if you let it write for you, because it's suddenly not you and it's not your ideas.
Yeah, 100%. And something else that comes to mind as we're talking as well, and I mentioned this in the previous episode, is bias. So there's two types of bias we have. There's bias in the data that AI has been trained upon, and it's improving. But even though the improvement of the data, that's introducing bias, right? So we're trying to fix the fact that if you put into AI something that may be typically online, which is not necessarily the reality, but typically is seen as a male role, then you're going to get a male. So that if you tie that into what you said earlier, if you're asking it to act like something or to behave in a way or to give you copy, it could be biased to a particular male or a female voice. So, but again, it combines, like you say, it's not a real personality. And I heard a talk a few months ago, and they said it's more like simulated intelligence than artificial. I think that helps a lot when you think it's running a simulation. So it's pretending to be something. It's pretending to be that. And if you're getting it to pretend to be you, then it's even if so. I mean, you mentioned you can train it. I know people that spend hours and hours and hours, similar to what you were saying about the day, but just talking it through, just their thoughts, just dropping every single thing in there. So, and they have, a bot that's basically them. And okay, you can talk to that bot. You can get, a feel for those things. And even if you generate content using that bot, if you don't check it, if you don't read it through, if you don't make sure that I would say this. I was talking to somebody recently about their CV, and they said, should I modify my CV per role? And I said, absolutely, as long as it's still authentic. As long as you can justify anything you put in there. Don't put anything in there that means that they're going to go, oh yeah, so you said you do this, this, and this, and you're like, that pause and go that like, is I've been at the other end of that as a recruiter, and I'm like, no, that I'm out, I'm out. There's a little kind of mark in there. So that absolutely, and I think but come back to that cognitive thing as well, is if we want to use AI as a tool, we want to use it as a tool that grows us. And I think with the approach you're taking, it's about growth, isn't it? It's saying actually you're taking your clients through a process of growing, and you're using AI in a way to support you in helping them in their growth, in helping them actually land those clients that aren't just, as we mentioned earlier, not necessarily, they might not be the big deal, but over the time period of the relationship, they end up being, the people that you get a greater part of the company income from, because of the fact that they're a recurring client. Because we talk of this a lot, don't we, in the cost of acquisition of a client, and the more longer you can have clients for, the better, because you're not having to go through that same process. Whereas if you're actually having to do what there are some other techniques that people use, which is all about the numbers and getting numbers in, you might get, I get stuff coming through. I can tell it's about numbers. It's not generic. It's not authentic, and it might land with 1 or 2 people out of 1,000. But the cost of them doing that. But even if they do the work, is there going to be any relationship? Probably not, because they're not coming from that relational space in the first place.
Yeah. That's something I always think with like the numbers game of like cold sales messages is, even if you do convert somebody, are they going to be a good client? Probably not. Like, I had a guy a while ago who messaged me asking for my help. And then when I suggested we had a chat to see if we actually got on, he was like, no, I'm too busy for that. Just send me a thing and I'll decide that way. And I was like, actually, no. I said, because I can't work with somebody that I don't align with. First of all, don't know what to do. I never like that. But secondly, like I literally can't work with somebody if we don't align, if we don't get on. So it kind of works both ways, I think. But it's, how people sell when there's no relationship there. I don't really get it.
Yeah. I mean, there's somebody at the moment. So I was on her podcast. I think it's coming out in a few weeks, but we got on really well. And so we're exploring how we could do stuff together. And she asked me, we had a conversation yesterday. She wants some help with something. So it's almost the other way around, going, oh, how can you help me? I'd love to work with you. How can you help me? And isn't that a wonderful thing to get from somebody that says, actually, I'd really love to work with you. How do we work that out? Because at that point, you don't even necessarily have defined products. You've just said, we have this relationship. I love what you're doing. How can we work in that space, rather than saying, well, this is, I mean, just before we started, I said to you, actually, I'd really love to have more further conversation about how maybe you can support me in my business, because I'm resonating with the things that you're talking about, the approach, the authenticity of that, the wanting to be my authentic self everywhere I appear online and in person as well, because that's the other challenge, isn't it? I'm a terrible one. I have been anyway, of going to networking meetings and have a different message and tweaking my messaging all the time. And it's never consistent. And I spoke to somebody recently who's doing really well in their new business. And he said, yeah, I've just been saying the same message for 8 months because I've been delivering the same message.
Yeah.
And he goes, now just everything I'm doing is working, because if the people are like, yep, I know who that person is. I know what it is that they do. And sometimes there is a fear in that, isn't there? There can be a fear in that, oh, well, I might miss out.
Yes.
But actually you will gain more than you'll miss out on if people actually really understand who you are. Yeah,
I describe it like being Marmite, and I feel like Marmite are probably going to come and try and sue me one day, but I describe it like being Marmite, in that you have to be bold in who you are and what you do and what your message is, and know that you're going to be repelling people and want that. Like, you have to want to push people away, because if you're not pushing anyone away, you're definitely not attracting the right people. And I know that's scary. Like, I am very much a people pleaser, so I know how scary that is. But you can't be vague. Like, being vague just goes straight over people's heads. Like we said earlier, no one's going to relate to it. No one's going to go, oh, that's for me. Whereas I know, like, even the other day, I did a 10-minute presentation in a networking group, as you do. And a lot of them were sat there sort of a bit like some quite weird, like, and I make silly jokes and all of this. And it used to terrify when people are sat there looking a bit like, what is she on about? But there was one guy the whole time was like this. And he, straight after, he was like, I have to work with you. Like, that was literally like, you just built that presentation for me. And like, how do I work with you? I need to work with you. And he signed up to my program, and like, with no questions, no, it wasn't a sales process. He just saw something he liked and he brought it. And it's not being afraid to push people away so that you can attract those people. Because if I'd just gone in like really vanilla, really like trying to please everybody, he wouldn't have brought.
Yeah. And it's that relation thing is so important, but you've put those two things together. There's the relational and there's the clarity of messaging. So about 15 years ago, I had somebody say to me, I'd love to work with you, Sean. I don't know on what, but I'd love to work with you, because I had like 3 or 4 different hats I was wearing. I was like, oh yeah, love your energy. So that relationally was great, but the messaging wasn't there. And so it's those components, isn't it? That you can have messaging and you can have messaging, and that can certainly help. But then if if you've got the relationship as well, if you're building that relationally and not worrying about, because the danger sometimes can be, you've seen this as well, a lot of people, I imagine, that are in business and got networking, is there are some people that about relationships, some with clear messages, some not with clear messages. And there are some that just see cash signs above everybody's heads, and they're just there to, so no matter what your messaging is going to be, they're really asking you what you do because they're just waiting for you to quickly get around that so they can tell you what they do. And unfortunately, that's the case. But it comes back to those two things together, doesn't it? The relationship and the messaging. You get those two things right, and then the world is your oyster, as they say.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And like the message is one of the core things that I work on with people, because I know that fear so well of walking into a networking group, because most of my work is online and it's like about your online content, but it works for everything. It is about the fact that you want to walk into that networking group and not panic when someone says, what do you do? And like you said, make up something different every time. You want to know, like, this is what I do. And for them to go, oh, amazing, I know someone that needs that. Like, so that's one of the main things that I like to work on with people, is like, how are we going to get that so crystal clear so that, like your bloke said, you can go at it solid for 8 months and know that it's bringing you a return, not kind of panicking and changing it each time.
Yeah, absolutely. And is that, I think you mentioned it earlier, but it's the confidence, isn't it? So it's this message is authentically you, so you can have the confidence and deliver it. And I spent, I don't know how many hours, as you can probably imagine, using AI to write me stuff, to inspire stuff, to help me to think all this stuff through, pages and pages of stuff. Mm-hmm. Do I have the confidence in the Bet With Humans? I do, but in the business, in the Tech That Gets business, no, I don't have the confidence in, and that's been the missing piece for me, which is why I'd like to talk to you further about that, because that's the thing that's missing. It's the confidence. And how do I get the confidence? AI is not going to give me confidence, right? It's never going to give me confidence. It's not. The only thing that's going to give me confidence is to get the messaging right, to keep it consistent, working with somebody like yourself that actually is helping me through that. I have the confidence that there's an expert, there's a thought leader that's going, this is pretty good, and then seeing the result. Yeah. And so the part of that confidence is built. We never build confidence overnight, do we? So it's that, okay, I'm getting a good response from that, but stick with it. It's good. You've put in the effort, stick with it. And then after a period of time, you're going, okay, right, people are now saying to me, well, we know what you do. Because sometimes you get pegged as well. You don't use somebody, I mentioned that about church. In the church environment, I did the audio visuals. And even now, I haven't done it for 2 years, but even now, if I go and say to somebody, I'm talking about business, like, oh yeah, you should go and offer audio visuals to church. And I go, no, that's not what I do. Yeah. That's not what I want to do. But they've put me in that frame because I haven't reframed it. I haven't consistently come with a different message to say, this is what I do. This is how I turn up. And I think that's what I take from this.
It is, and messages don't land overnight. Like, I used to do a lot more LinkedIn training than I do now. Like, I still love LinkedIn. I still do the odd training, but I like the wider strategy and everything we've been talking about today. But it took me probably 6 months of really solidly going at the new messaging for people to think of me for that rather than just for LinkedIn. Even like a networking group that I do every single week, one person in there still thinks that I do LinkedIn, and that's because they put you in that box. So that shows like my LinkedIn messaging was really strong, and they now aren't able to listen to anything else. So it's like taking that time and not expecting it to click overnight as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's definitely something I'm taking from this, and I've learned personally myself, is keep changing and tweaking. It's actually worth spending the time making sure that your message is authentic, that you've got something that you would say, as you say, to existing clients, even check it out with existing clients, and then be able to do that for consistently the times that people start to resonate and go, you are because I do a lot with AI training consultancy, but it's still tech. So there's still a danger I just become the tech guy. Yeah. And that's quite a hard thing to do, because I've been in a course with somebody around AI, and they're still saying to me, it's good to know somebody that's into tech. And of course, the trouble is that I want you to do other stuff. It's like, well, and that's a whole nother conversation, but probably for a different thing, which is in terms of what, making sure that you stick to the thing that you say you're doing, and you deliver the thing you say you're doing. But I find people will go, oh yeah, can you do this for me? Can you go and can you fix my PC? And it's like, well, that isn't really, I could do those things, but it's not what I do. And if I do those things, then I'm actually potentially changing I'm distorting the message. Yeah, I need to deliver on the message, don't I?
Definitely. And a lot of that, like as like a tip or whatever for people, is expert language, because it might be that because you understand all of that tech, that potentially the language that you're then using when you describe your work goes a bit technical, which makes people just put you into this tech box. So it's also about like using the language that your ideal client would use, which is really hard. The longer you've been in industry, the harder it is, because you think those words are normal, but they're not. So that's like market research. It's asking them, it's doing this, even like looking on forums, what's the language people are using? Because that can often be why we get put in maybe slightly the wrong box, is we just confuse people and they go, well, they must do that thing,
That's right. I think that's a wonderful tip to close on, because particularly from a tech background, but any background, isn't it? We've all got our jargon, and I think that's really, really fabulous advice to say. If people are kind of going, even yesterday, I'm thinking now, I had a meeting yesterday, and I was doing the same thing. So it's I'll be taking that on board myself. I'm going to say it's been amazing to have you, Meg. I just want to make sure that people can find you, connect with you. If I'm sure there's going to be plenty that are going to resonate with what you've been speaking about. So how do they get in contact with you if they want to find out more?
Yeah, so find me on LinkedIn. That's probably still my main hangout spot, just Meg Hutson. Don't try and find me under Megan. You won't find me Megan anywhere. And Instagram as well is It's Meg Hutson. So I don't know if there'll be show notes that you can pop the links into or anything like that, but that's where to find me. Drop me a message, say you've listened, and I'd love to chat.
Yeah, absolutely. There will be show notes, and I'll put the links in the show notes as well. So thank you so much for coming. And if you've been listening and you've enjoyed this podcast, then please check the links in the show notes, and like and subscribe on whatever channel that you're coming on. And I'd love to hear from people if you've got any thoughts on particular subjects that you'd want to look at when it comes into uncovering what is better with humans. And once again, Meg, thank you so much for your time. It's been a great episode.
Thank you. It's been lovely to chat.